think a lot of brands forget to actually nurture their audience, and they just say, well, we're having a sale, let's just throw an email campaign out. I think email and SMS are, mandatory, and not just the typical, come back and purchase. We do so much education. We do VIP. We really want to make people feel special.
Welcome to the DTC Insider podcast, where online business owners come to find actionable tips and tactics to grow their businesses. Now, here's your host, Brian Roisentul.
Hey, welcome to another episode. My name is Brian, I'm your host, and today I'm joined by Sarah Vilenskiy. She's the founder of Blossom Essentials. Hey, Sarah, thanks for being here on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. So why don't you start by telling the audience more about yourself and the company?
Absolutely. So I'm the CEO and founder of Blossom Essentials. We make clean and natural hydration products for severely dry, reactive, and damaged skin. So that can really mean anything from eczema, psoriasis, dermatitis, kind of the skin conditions realm, all the way to menopausal, hormonal changing skin, radiation therapy skin, which is really drying, mosquito bites, kind of the whole gamut within the dry skin space.
And why did you decide to start a company?
I have severely dry skin. I also have really sensitive skin. I can react to pretty much anything. I can go outside and have a reaction. I did one of those allergy tests, and I was allergic to 49 out of the 60
Wow.
things that they tested me for. Yeah, it was brutal, very itchy. So yeah, ingredients really do matter. And I noticed that a lot of the products on the market were causing me to have reactions, especially ones that kind of boast being for sensitive skin. So I really took my own skin as the testing ground for, making really non-reactive products.
And your background is in marketing, right?
Yes, digital marketing. Yeah, I've kind
Right.
of seen
So
the whole world there.
Right. So you've been in the trenches as well from the other side. Did you work with brands or did you do something else?
Kind of all over the place. I started my digital marketing journey after college in the affiliate space. And I was bringing on media buyers to run our offers that we would bring on, kind of on the other side of the business. And then from there, I kind of moved up that ladder and realized, what else can I do? I got really bored and antsy and trying to find the next big thing, as most entrepreneurs do until they finally start their own thing. But yeah, then I moved to media buying myself. So I do know how to navigate a business manager quite well. After that, I went into branding. Actually, no, before that, I went into business development for an actual media buying team where we developed or almost like incubated brands. And that was really, really cool. It kind of gave me the start into the world of manufacturing and how to navigate that, who to kind of speak to. Don't get me wrong, a lot of hand holding for sure in the beginning and just kind of like what's going on. But ultimately, because of that, I was able to even have I don't say the guts, but like the beginning knowledge to launch Blossom. And it was really, really helpful. But after that, I worked in branding and a few other niches. And then I eventually just went off on my own.
And what are the things, because you've been at both sides that you value, about, marketers and agencies that probably those founders who have never worked at an agency or maybe as a freelancer don't know?
Well, if you've been following me for a while, you might know that I don't love agencies. I've had a lot of bad experiences as a founder working with agencies, especially because I knew what was going on, working at an affiliate agency for quite a while. And I did have that experience often where, the CEO would sell me on it, build this pipe dream, and then hand me off to a junior. And I was paying, quite a lot of money. And it was, terrible results. And it made me feel really questioning myself and my self-worth and the business and some gaslighting involved. Sorry. I know I apologize if you're an agency, but yeah, I think that as even when I worked on the other side of things, I can only really experience it as the founder. And because of my poor experiences with those agencies, I now know exactly what to ask, exactly what to look out for as like red flags, and then also green flags. Don't get me wrong. There are some, quote unquote agencies that really are, you're working with the person that just needed some extra help, right? And so they consider themselves an agency because they have employees. But at the end of the day, it's still really them and their mind behind the work. And I do that right now with our email and SMS team. And she's just such a go-getter and she works so hard. So yeah, I think, asking the right questions and making sure that I personally think unless you're spending, high five figures on ads, do not go to an agency, find a person. And then even then make sure that, it's not too large of an agency where you really will just be another fish in the pond.
Yeah, and I agree, and there's one more thing. And by the way, I own an agency, and I'll tell you my thoughts on that. And I totally agree with some things you said because I come from the background of computer science. Back then, my first company in 28. I'm not that old. I'm 37, but I started early. I'm like early, but yeah, I was pretty young. We opened the first office in 2010, and back then we used to deliver apps, websites. It could be phone apps. Yes, a few, but not even. It was Facebook. There was a thing, back then, a huge thing, Facebook apps, and of course, web applications for desktop. And the difference between marketing companies and those companies is that the deliverable, let's say it's clear, because in practice it's not that clear. There's a deliverable, there's a website, there's a system, there's something. Then in 2013, I created the first version of the current agency I own. It's different because that it's not, you don't work to deliver something, you work to achieve the brand's goals. And there's no deadline, like there are multiple small deadlines, but it's an ongoing thing you're chasing, and there are ups and downs, and the entry barrier is lower, right? So there were many agencies over the years. Everyone is doing Meta ads, Google ads, or all kind of stuff. So it's kind of sad of being an agency in a time in which agency is a bad word. And many agency owners try to say, "Well, I'm not an agency. I actually hate agencies," but well, you are. So it's tricky. It's tricky.
Yeah, and I agree with you, and I think that the hardest part is that it's so much easier said than done to say vet them, right? Because if you don't know, like I am grateful that I can go into a business manager and be like, this is good, this bad, this good, this bad. Most founders, especially when you're coming from, founding the company for your own background, let's say for skincare specifically, let's say you made it in your kitchen or you started it because you have a chemistry degree and you wanted to, create something, and then the marketing comes after, and then you're like, oh wait, I actually have to sell this. Let me go lean on, my network, or just start Googling who's, an agency or who can help me with this. And then everybody under the sun, promises the world, and they have no idea how to choose, and and they can go through a referral. And when I first started, I have two distinct stories of my progression or journey for meta ads. So just to put it into perspective, the way it worked for us, I never really wanted to run the meta ads myself. I'm nowhere near good enough for that. I can look at it and I can evaluate, but I am not necessarily a super, analytical person. And I'm very much like, I have emotions and I'm excited, and that's not good for me very much so. And I hate like tedious work where you just have to like keep, launching new ads, launching new ads. So I'm like the helper, and I'll get whatever's needed to my media buyer to get it done. But at the end of the day, like I will never choose that role. But all of that being said, when I first launched 5 years ago, I partnered with my first partner back then, or technically second, but that's a whole nother story. He was handling the media buying himself for this other brand before he came on board with Blossom, and so he kind of like taught me a bunch, and especially focused around creative and such. But that's when iOS 14 kind of happened. And so
Yeah.
he was struggling because he actually didn't know how to media buy that well either, I guess. And so so he was referred an agency, and it was pretty low cost back then, but at the time it was so much money for us because we weren't making anything. And it was referred by a friend of his who was using them for a supplement company. And so the supplement company was, I guess taking off, or they were seeing at least some success. And so we respected the agency and we believed in them. We're like, okay, let's give it a try. This is, a large amount of money for us, but we're going to trust and believe that this is going to be the thing that gets us to the next goal. No, that did not happen. Even my ex-partner, after I think probably 4 months of running with them, where it just went absolutely nowhere. And mind you, I don't give it like a month before I determine this is not working. I don't even give it 3 months. 6 months. Like, I give it so much time because they keep coming back on these phone calls and giving me hope that this is going to be the next thing, and then nothing happens. But I will say, like, that agency did better for me than the next story I'm about to tell you. But so we were using them, and we finally were like, we have to get out of here. I switched to this new agency, or it was very much it was a girl who was phenomenal at creatives. Actually, she pivoted to only being a creative agency now, and kudos to her. I still have a lot of respect for her. I have nothing bad to say about this specific woman, but she had like a team behind her essentially. So kind of like what I was explaining earlier, find the person that's actually doing the work, and then they have helpers. She was very much creative focused. So she pushed out a ton of new creatives with hooks and angles and such. And I loved it. We did amazing. We did the best we've ever done to that point. And then, and I made a mistake. iOS 14 hadn't even happened yet with the first. Then it happened with this agency. And then her creatives weren't working because we weren't getting it to the right people. So after, I think I worked with her for probably like 8 months or so. And she was, amazing. I really have a lot of respect for her. But ads weren't working. All of that we were seeing success for prior was gone. And then I get to my nightmare agency that really scarred me. This is the company who made me second guess my product, my brand, and myself so much that I almost like closed the business. That's how bad it was. I was spending $7,500 a month on this agency when we were making next to nothing. I was taking a huge leap of faith because they had come so highly regarded and referred by this this mastermind I was in. Because I was like, I have to like get in front of smart people. I have to like figure out what the problem is. I've never had such a bad and like demeaning and just like awful experience that I had with that.
What was the worst? What happened to them?
So they led me on for 6 months. They said your product is too expensive. It's not working. We were making prior with the creative agency like $50K a month, right? Which at the time was monumental for us. And then with this one, we were spending 3x the cost, and they were making us 10K a month in total, and it wasn't even through their ads. It was like retention as well. So like I was paying 3x, they were making us 10K, and we were spending probably 10K. And then they just kept going excuse after excuse after excuse, and never taking responsibility and never saying, hey, maybe it's us. Maybe it's, they obviously put me on a junior media buyer. That was very clear as day. 2 of them, by the way. Like they switched to like even more junior, I think, once they realized it wasn't going to take off. But the worst part about it was like they kept giving me hope as if they're going to be the saving grace and not that we had a good brand. And then the moment after, I gave them 6 months, I swear to God, I'm not exaggerating, 6 full months before I was like crying myself to sleep at night. Like, what am I doing? I'm in over my head. I made a mistake. I fired them. I partnered with my now partner who was just coming on as a media buyer at the time. And within quite literally 2 weeks, we had made $90,000 just by him just fixing the media buying. We didn't do anything different. We had the same creatives. We had the same offer. We had the same this, that, and the other. And all he did was go into the business manager, fix things, launch things appropriately. And then it turned around in the blink of an eye. And we had our best year. That was, I remember because it was an ultimatum. I had to go out and get more money from a family friend as a loan. And he was like, and this was, so this was December 27th, 2021, because we had 2022 as our biggest year. He said, okay, I'm going to give you this small amount of money. You either take it and turn it into something. So for 2022, or if by the end of the year you run out of the money, you're not getting another dime. You have to close up shop. And I was like, okay. So I found my now partner and then, person. And I took a huge risk because he was also very expensive, but I knew him personally, like through my world. And I knew what he could do. And again, I'm not like 2 weeks and the whole business turned around. And that's when I knew it was the agency just like breaking me down and like trying to destroy my everything that I had and all of my belief in my company, because we were fine. Like yeah. Anyway, so I'm very passionate about it. So yes, I'm
Yeah,
hard.
because I mean, in the audience we have fellow founders ahead or behind in your journey, and every piece of advice you give them, as little as it might seem, it's huge because they might be about to hire the next agency and probably they didn't bet it right. Probably it's because someone said you should work with them, but probably they didn't bet them. So it's always good. And besides that, you said that was, 2021. Things have changed a lot in this, in everywhere, but in this space, in the marketing space, in the DTC space, we're going to talk about the transition you made to retail as well. But things are, when we started the company back then in 2013, Meta ads was just the right column ads. So there was not feed ads, no feed ads, right?
It's a long time ago.
Yeah, 2013. Then, well, of course, everything improved. Facebook, and I don't know if you know Neil Goyal from LinkedIn, at least. Neil Goyal, he was formerly at Topcart, and now he's at Disco. He's one of the top voices in e-commerce in the US mainly, and I had the pleasure of having him twice here and talk once in a while. Neil, if you're listening, he knows what he means to me because he's always, trying to give you a lot of good advice, and he did a breakdown on the evolution of the e-commerce in the last few years. And basically, in a nutshell, pre 2020, let's say pre COVID, Meta was a money making machine. So you put $1, you got 10, and it was aggressive. And besides, we used to have all the funnel, landing page views, add to cart, initiated checkout, and purchase, and we could see the whole thing there. Sure, you could use analytics, but you could see the truth, right? Between quotes. But then COVID hit, of course, massive demand in 21, iOS 14 hit, as you said, generating the issues we keep till this day with tracking. 2022, there were a massive layoff. And in 2023, and started to realize that they needed to be profitable because that's the thing. And we all say now, yeah, right, why not? But back then, money was cheap and it wasn't the thing. 2024, it was like the V line, the inflection point in which everyone was like, oh, we need to go back to the basics. 2025, I think that, of course, we are recording this in July. So we already have the first half. And probably, I don't know about you, but I don't think many people anticipated what happened so far with the tariffs and all this stuff. TikTok, banned or not banned in the beginning of the year. So we thought it was going to be okay this year after the elections, which was, a shaky year for many brands, the uncertainty. And I think the word uncertainty is still around. What do you think about that?
I love that question. I was just talking to my retail consultant about this yesterday. It has never been more fickle. I swear, every year I go into it being like, this is going to be the year that it gets easier. And I
Yeah.
think I'm just trying to trick myself into thinking that, guys, whoever's listening to this, it never gets easier, especially as you grow. It is so like there's so many uncertainties. You're absolutely correct. And I think that especially as a brand founder, I haven't necessarily had to navigate the tariffs as much as some others that were like in shipment. And also we produce in the United States, but I do get my components from China. And it's not even a cost thing, although that definitely plays in. It's very much a capabilities thing, and the options are just so much more what they consider stock is so much further along than what we have in the United States. And then the MOQs are significantly less. So I don't have to order 50,000 at a time constantly, especially if we're launching something new. So that didn't really seem like a feasible option to us. But all of the suppliers, and especially the raw materials and ingredient suppliers, they're just hiking up prices for no reason because they can, right? And I was like, well, is it going to go down when tariffs are removed? And they're like, no, once it goes up, it doesn't come down. They'll find another reason to charge you for it. So I'm now starting to navigate all of that. So there's uncertainty on my level, and then also uncertainty to the end customer. Like, they don't want to spend as much money. The brands that are doing well right now are the cheaper brands, regardless of how, their formulas are clean or natural or this, that, and the other, whatever's important to their values. And so it's just become, let's just see what happens, which is a really difficult thing to do when you're trying to grow, because and here's another example, like the retailers are being very conservative and they're only taking bets on the brands that they don't have to take bets on. And what that means is they're bringing in brands that they know are going to sell, right?
Yeah.
Through virality, or it's, celebrity backed, or something that's just, engagement or brand awareness, forward, rather than the brands that are actually producing really great formulas and really great products. And so that shifted. That wasn't the case, a year ago, even maybe less than a year ago. I think with the changes in the tariffs and with Trump changing his mind every 2 weeks, everybody's pulling back. Consumers, retailers, and it's more so important to be profitable now because it's a waiting game and a survival game versus, okay, how are we going to get to our next milestone? And we had to pivot our mindset of late from this is going to be the year that we hit, the next hockey stick, to this is going to be the year that we're going to survive and have enough money in the bank so that by the time 2026 rolls around, and maybe, with the retailers we're actively pursuing and in conversations with, are going to reopen those doors that they've now put internal pauses on. And that's a thing. We were talking to a huge retailer and we were pretty far along in the process, and then all of a sudden just quiet. And we're like, what's going on? Turns out, from what we understand, they haven't really come
Yeah.
forward with this information. But based on what we're hearing from other brands that were pretty far along as well, and, had actual conversations and we're at the finish line, those were also paused. Like, they hadn't heard anything either. That a lot of these retailers have put a mandate in not to bring in new brands, not even like popular ones, like just nothing, because we just don't know where the world is going to be in 6 to 12 months. And that's very difficult because we forecast as best we could, or at least we, thankfully we're bootstrapped, and that is a huge leg up for us because we don't have to report to an investor team that says, we were supposed to go into so and so and we didn't because they put a mandate in, and therefore you're not getting your 20x returns or whatever. We are in a very fortunate position where we can just wait it out. But on the other side of things, it's like my mental capacity to wrap my head around that is just not quite there. It's so hard, right? Because we're so on the brink of this like greatness that it's almost like every year I feel like I'm like just grasping for it. It's like I'm on a treadmill and it's like hanging from a string right in front of me.
I think that, I talk to many brands every single week, and I can guarantee you're not the first one to say that, hey, we had this goal, but now the goal is to survive. Literally, I think that Sean Frank at Rich, I think the other day he said something like that in their newsletter or in the on LinkedIn, and it's a pretty well known brand. The like what we are living these days is not the norm, and brands need to adapt somehow. So probably the next question for you is, how are you adapting in 2025? Because you said you had some things planned for the year, but of course the year looks a lot different.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So don't be afraid to shake things up internally, even if that makes a few people mad. I think that when we move to and this is kind of a twofold answer, but when we move to a profit first, or an EBITDA approach. And that was already in 2023, right? So this was way before this, but we scaled back Meta dramatically because it was not, at the end of the day, it was very, very expensive. And now it's only more expensive, by the way, to acquire customers on Meta. So we shifted and we decided as a company, that's when we're going to pursue retail. And in order to do that, we had to go through a rebrand. We had to change manufacturers. It was like a complete overhaul. So that's the first part of your answer or part of your question, because we were almost planning for this to happen years before unintentionally. So I made new manufacturing relationships. And I think that's a really, really big part of why we're able to survive right now, because they were understanding of like, hey, I put in these POs for massive, or I put in these, purchase orders for massive quantities, but in fact, the retailers ordered a lot less for our current ones, and the other ones are taking a little bit longer. Can we prolong when you produce it into batches? And so having that relationship has allowed us to survive on that side of things. And then cutting back, I am very well known in my little world as very, I don't want to say scrappy. Scrappy is a good word. I don't want to say cheap, but scrappy. And I know every dollar coming in and every dollar going out. And mind you, we still spend a lot, but keeping that OpEx as clean as humanly possible and just knowing your finances, that has helped us a lot as well. And that pushes me into my next point of like, things have not been working for so long on like Meta and other facets that I finally was like, all right, I need to step on some toes. And it's not ideal. And I don't intentionally want to do that, but I have to make a change because something's not working and I have to fix it. Whether that's going to fix it or not, you have to understand that you're taking a risk if you're changing something. And that's not an easy thing to do. But I also understand like it might fail, it might win. But if I don't try, we're just going to we're going to be in the same cycle as we've always been or for a while. And the world is changing. Business is changing and we have to adapt. So as of like 3 weeks ago, maybe I overhauled a lot of internal digital focused stuff to, number one, cut some costs. Number two, to see if we just need a new set of eyes. And number three, to kind of have a lot of like synergy between D2C and retail. Cause I think for a very long time, we did not really have that. And then we're trying new things.
Sorry to cut you. So what do you mean by synergy between retail and DTC?
We want the customer to see us online and then, go in and purchase, or vice versa. It's more like, I don't want to say brand awareness because we're not driving brand awareness specifically like with Meta ads or something. We have our other ways of doing that through influencers. And we just recently started with a PR firm for the first time because we understand the importance of like, at the end of the day, nobody knows who we are and they're not going to pick us up on shelf at Walmart unless they know who we are, right? So there's a lot of like mixing the ads around and the awareness around like, hey, this is what we're doing. This is why we're different. And then also trying to have us being in Walmart then get them to purchase online because of that authority. And like, Walmart wants us, you want us to. So just a lot of synergy there.
What was the big fear or the biggest, misconception, fear, everything that you want to put into that bag that you had when you were going into retail for the first time, coming from a DTC?
It's terrifying. It still is terrifying, like one misstep. And we're very fortunate that the partners that we have for retail are a lot more lenient. But if you go into a Target or a CVS or a Sephora or an Ulta, it is strict and they'll catch you or ding you for anything. And so it's pretty terrifying. And you also need to prove yourself. I think the biggest misconception, or at least it was in the past, was like, okay, you get into the retailer and then you're done. You did all of the work to get into the retailer. You fought the fight. You went viral, blah, blah, blah. We've never gone viral, but my point is the whole concept is like you got to that end, right? To the finish line. Except if you get to the finish line, you're only just getting to the starting line because like you got 6 months to prove yourself or you're out, somebody else is getting that shelf space. And it is cutthroat and they're not going to do anything to support you because why would they? They're giving you the honor of being on their shelves, And you have to have incredibly strong margins in order for this to work because of all of the additional marketing initiatives that you have to have in place. Of course, slotting fees, shelf space, the displays, if you ever get to that point, which, a Sephora or Target definitely need that. And so all of those fees do have to factor in, which is why those margins are so important. But on the flip side, for us, retail right now, with the partners that we're in currently, retail is so much more profitable for us because Meta was so expensive to acquire a new customer. Like I hear now, mind you, we have that digital marketing background internally. So we were striving for like a $65 CPA as like, that's a great CPA for skincare, right? When our AOV was sitting at around 60 to 65. Of course, you have COGS and shipping. So at the end of the day, we were losing money on that first sale, retention, you have to focus on all of that. That's just step one. Most founders in the skincare space specifically have no idea how to run ads. And so they're just throwing up a creative and they don't know the angles and they don't have a fully fledged funnel with conversion rate optimization in place and, a strong retention strategy or an email flow just for like welcoming them in if they haven't purchased yet and educating and this, that, and the other. They don't have any of that because they just don't know, right? So they are seeing $150 CPAs. I'm not exaggerating. I know a lot of skincare companies dealing with spending $150 to acquire a new customer. Now, better yet, I recently learned that the conglomerates like the L'Oreals, the Estee Lauders, the Codys, they are more, bear with me here, you're about to like be floored by this. They are more than willing to spend $330 to acquire a new customer. $330. So we're fighting that space, right? Because we are the small indie beauty brand trying to just fight and claw our way on that Meta newsfeed, but we physically can't because they're willing to spend so much more in the auction to get that space.
And what do you think is clearly it's something that brands need these days? Meta is not the only way. Yeah, of course, retail is one channel, DTC or the online store is another one. I'm talking about the online store now for a minute. So, what do you do about it? This is getting expensive, and I will do a small parenthesis. As an agency. Well, I don't want to call myself an agency. I just kidding. But we used to do these meta audits. Now we don't do them anymore, and I talk about it openly about the fact that I think that those are done. We audit different stuff. It's not that we don't look at meta, but going into meta and saying this is what you need to tweak, and all of a sudden you will unlock the revenue as it happened in 2021, right? Or so. So what do you do when you see that the cost is that high? You already did the basics elsewhere, like optimizing the website. What else do you do?
I think it very much depends on if you are able to float the cash and you have a strong retention percentage, right? So if you know that they're going to come back and buy in a month or 2 months, and you can float that, and oftentimes people can't because many brands are bootstrapped, right? So they need to be profitable on that front end. But if you can, that would obviously be know your numbers. That's very important. But if you can't, I think, going back to organic is critical if you have a winning strategy with influencers. But I think more importantly, and I'm going to sound a little bit cliche with this, but like find your niche. Like for us specifically, we are niche, right? At the end of the day, we're not just a regular skincare company. We are for people with severely dry, not acne, not normal, not oily, dry specific skincare with also very, very sensitive reactive skin, and that are often flare-up prone. So flare-up prone is the eczemas and whatever of the world. Yeah. So my point is like, we can speak to this audience specifically, especially because I'm dealing it with it myself, and I understand what they're going through for the most part. Some have pretty, extensive issues, and I don't pretend to try to put myself in their shoes. But for us, when we wanted to cut through the noise, we got really, really specific. And that has helped us build our community. That has helped us be somewhat well known for, dry skin when word of mouth comes into play. That's really important. So we're not trying to cater to everybody. And that's why for us, going into a Sephora actually would be a massive fail. We would not do well there because we are so specific and we need people to understand what we're doing in order for them to pick up our product. And a Sephora is just like a playground of just like colors and, people aren't going in there to fix a problem. They're going in there to look prettier, right? It's surface level. And so for us, that's not our holy grail, as one might say it is for most skincare companies in the space.
Yeah.
You've asked the founder, they're like, where do you want to be? What's your goal? They're always like, Sephora. And I'm like, no, Target. Target. That's where I go when I want to fix a problem.
Right. Yeah, so yesterday you made me think about a call that I had yesterday with let's call it a prospect. It's a brand. They were not in a position to work with us because they didn't need, as you said, to hire an agency in their position because they were just getting started. A young founder, a great guy, and he was looking for help. We have a newsletter as well, and he was following that, and he booked a call. And it was funny because he, at the minute he jumped into the call, he said, "I'm not a seven-figure brand. I'm sorry, I booked this call, but I still want to your house." So he was like, relax. And he was running like a skincare brand for men. He started like a few months ago. He released that. So far he got purchases from a few strangers, let's say, besides friends and family. So he was at that stage running meta ads super unprofitably. Like it was even below one ROAS if we talk about ROAS, but it's a different discussion. But even talking about ROAS, it was point something and it wasn't working. It was like, what do I need to do next? And of course, I'm nobody to tell them what to do next. But since I speak and work with many brands, I say, hey, probably one of the things I said is you need to niche down because otherwise you're competing with everyone else, the giants, the small players, like everyone. And what's different about you? I know that you say or you claim that your products leave your skin in a perfect, I don't know, state or whatever, but that's not how you win at this market, especially in the US market that you have so many products for so many small niches like underwear for men for those who practice CrossFit or I don't know, whatever supplements for those into, I don't know, swimming, whatever, I've seen many of those and they win because they do have an audience. They can build a community. They can help them. We're around, of course, veterans, those who are veterans. I interviewed, Born Primitive here, former Navy SEAL officer, um, what was the name? Burr Handlin, the founder of Born Primitive, nine-figure brand, or Black Rifle Company. I interviewed them the other day, $400 million, publicly traded. It's all around that. They say they are an entertainment company that sells coffee,
Yeah.
right? And if you look at their socials, you will see that 2 million followers everywhere, 1 million or 2 million subscribers on YouTube as well. And it's an entertainment company that sells coffee, really, for $100 million.
Yeah,
So,
find your niche. Yeah. And some advice to that fella. Men's skincare is one of the most difficult categories to penetrate as especially on Meta or, especially as you're just starting out because there really is no differentiator. You should tell him to go and advertise to the spouses of the men because spouses purchase for their significant others. They don't Men are so infrequent and you have to get them at a good time and you have to keep their interest and then you also have to get them to keep the routine, and so retention is not very strong because guys don't necessarily want to keep doing it every single day for the rest of their lives. I own a skincare company and my husband was gonna we tried, bless his heart, tried to do a skincare routine and he lasted maybe like 2 or 3 weeks of me being like, "Hey, did you remember to wash your face tonight and then use the cream?" And he was like, "Yes, I did." And then, after 3 weeks, it fizzled very
right.
quickly.
Okay, well,
And now
that's
he
great.
hasn't touched it in months. And it's
I'll tell him after the call. Yeah, no, it's great advice. Yeah, if you think about it, it's right. In fact, I love this company. They are called Man-Made, Canadian company. They've been crushing it. And they raised money recently from, Howie, I think he's the judge, the TV personality, the bald guy. So from him and I don't know how many other people. And they record themselves calling their customers with their prior permission, of course, and they create ads out of that. So in the ads, you can see the one of the founders holding the phone like this on speaker, talking to customers. And one of them, I remember, they bought like I don't know, 40 trunks or boxers, and they were like, why did you buy 40? Because my wife said that it looks great on me. So if my wife said something that looks great on me, I'll buy everything that you have.
Oh my gosh, I totally get that. Yes.
Yes,
My
I'm
gosh,
with you.
that hits home. I love that.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
right.
So exactly. One of the last questions I got for you is in line with what you were talking about, with acquisition getting more expensive. Of course, you need to still acquire new customers, but it's, I always say the following, and I sound like a broken record, but I'm a firm believer in this. And it's that you need to put a lot of work into decreasing the cost, but there's a limit to how much you can do that. But the sky is a limit between quotes because it's not really, but it's a higher limit to increase the value, to increase the customer lifetime value, right? But that's the cliche as well, as I said before, because yeah, you need to increase the lifetime value, but there are specific things brand can do to do that that probably they are not doing. And I know that one of your strengths, as far as I can understand so far, is retention, email, mail, etc. Right? So what are you doing on that front that probably those listening should replicate or
Yeah.
be inspired?
Yeah, absolutely. I think email and SMS are, mandatory, and not just the typical come back and purchase. We do so much education. We do VIP. We really want to make people feel special. For our SMSs, we've been doing questions of like, what's your issue? Or like, tell us more. We're doing like a birthday. So we're really trying to get granular and build that connection instead of just being like, hey, we're running a sale, go purchase. And that allows people to have us be more top of mind than if they just see a sale email, right? Because I think a lot of brands forget to actually nurture their audience and they just say, well, we're having a sale, let's just throw an email campaign out. And so I think the flows are incredibly important. Even if they don't drive direct revenue, I think in the long term, it absolutely helps gear it around that. And then we actually do a lot, and I have to preface this by saying, know your demo. Our demo skews older. And so that's why this works so significantly well for us. But I've had friends where I've been like, try it. And then their demo is like Gen Z. And it went absolutely nowhere for them. And also the category is very important. So like it was a fashion company versus, us being skincare, but direct mail has been an absolute killer for us. The ROI is astronomical. I think we had like a 10x ROI, and I'm not exaggerating that. I know, it's amazing. So we started off really basic. What I wanted to focus on with direct mail specifically, because I felt that the others were grabbing onto sales that we probably could have gotten ourselves first. And then I've really expanded. So I started with, I want to hit a customer with a direct mail postcard. If they used to buy from us multiple times, they stopped purchasing for some reason, they haven't been on our website, they haven't opened an email, they haven't clicked on a text, anything, like totally 100% without any questions, they are a dead customer, and I want to hit them with a postcard to see if we can get them back in. And we sent a heartfelt message, and we gave a discount because everybody wants discounts,
Yeah.
and it converted like crazy. We brought in like 400 customers that we had lost from a year before, literally a year before. It was amazing. Yeah. And I'll be honest, we all of the transitions we've had to make and grow as a company, we had some problems. There's, it's a lot of growing pains, a lot of testing and seeing what happens, because there's no other way to do it other than that. And we hit some snags for sure. I'll be the first to admit that, because anybody growing a business is going to hit snags. If you're saying that you're perfect all the time, you're lying or you're not growing. But because of that, it definitely caused, a certain amount of time for us to lose quite a few of our customers, and whether they had bought one time or multiple times. And so I was adamant, like, I'm going to get them back. We got such a large percentage of them back. It felt so good to me. And now they're buying over and over and over again since bringing them back from a year before. And that meant a lot. And then I think the other thing I would say is, while we were navigating these issues, and I think I learned a big lesson from it. At first, we didn't want to like do a whole widespread campaign of the issue to everybody, because not everybody was experiencing a problem. So I was like, no, if somebody comes to us, then we'll immediately fix it, blah, blah, blah. And that was the wrong idea, by the way. I do not stand behind that. I made the wrong decision for that. I should have come forward and announced it to our community, because after that, after I had learned from my mistake, I started telling my email list everything. Like, I explained how things were being made and what the issues were happening, like, were stemming from. I explained why we had to change this preservative to this preservative because it attaches to water and we were removing I went so in depth and like scientific, and like I became like a chemist. And then I also apologized when, and I took fault of the issues. And then I said, we're delayed again. We had a pre-sale. We were going to ship this day, but this caused us not to be able to because of the production process, and something went wrong. And so we'd need more time. And the amount of like gratitude and just understanding that we received when I just told people what happened in depth, instead of just being like, hey, it's going to be delayed again, we're so sorry, versus like, here's why, opened so many doors for us and really, really helped us nurture that community and get people that may have been upset into just being like totally understanding, and then supporting us from then till now. Really, we have many of those customers still.
That was a great decision or choice, and but it's easier said than done, right? It's not easy to. It must be frightening to, say, "Hey, I might lose many customers if I come forward." But I think it's okay. It's the what needs to be done in those cases. And you were mentioning before, education, and I think especially in your niche or in your vertical, education is really important because of the activation phase. I mean, it starts what like doing a parallelism with what you were saying before about Walmart. It's not enough to land on the shelf. That's like putting the horse in the race, and you have the horse. You need to bet on that horse and for it to win the race. This is the same thing, it's having the oh, I lost it. What I was saying, I lost it with the horse example, probably.
The synergy between education and
Yeah,
retail.
sorry. So yeah, thank you. So you need to activate people to use the products. The first step is to get them to buy the first time. But in this case, if they don't use the product, they won't replenish, they won't buy again. So the education, the activation, and what we have seen with brands we work with is that even if you don't pitch anything, only educate them, it produces revenue as well. Even if it wasn't the main point, even if it was to educate them, it pays off anyways.
100%. Because people just want to understand and learn, right? We're all learners at the end of the day, and we all want to do our own research. And if you can show people why, get really scientific with why they are maybe dealing with the symptoms that they're dealing with, and here's the underlying issues of the flare up in the first place, they'll be like, oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know if I fix these underlying issues, then my flare ups will be controlled. Or the science behind organic manuka honey being so much more beneficial of an antibacterial than raw honey. And a lot of brands just use raw honey, and so the methyl glyoxal is 100 times more potent in manuka honey, and people are like, I had no idea. Now I understand why you go into a grocery store and manuka honey is so expensive. That, and also because you can only source it in New Zealand on the manuka bushes. That's a whole other story. But my point is, like, there are so many brands on the market now. It's never been easier, and this is like the common knowledge that goes around now. It's like it's never been easier to launch a skincare company. It's never been harder to grow and survive a skincare company. And I couldn't agree more, because at the end of the day, unless you have a defining factor of why you're different and you explain that to people, you're just another product on the shelf, and there's no way of knowing why somebody should choose you over another one. Like, how many serums and face oils and face creams do we really need, right? But if you're fixing a very specific problem, and here's why, and here's the ingredients that are doing that, and here are the scientific results that are for those ingredients, that makes sense as to why I should pick up that product and purchase it and try it.
Yeah, niching down, having a unique personality help as well. Those brands that have this fun or funny or some other kind of personality helps as well to build a rapport with the audience and let them decide, hey, this is not my thing, or oh, I love this. So this is probably staying in the middle doesn't help as much because, as you said, you're just another product, just another brand, and it's tough to break through the noise.
Yeah. And also, I would say for anybody listening that's just starting out, don't try to do it all and don't try to force yourself to be something that you're not. For us, I am not, and I'm more than willing to admit, I'm not a like super funny person. Like, I can't go out and crack jokes and, make fun of, certain things or whatever. That's okay, right? Like, I am an education person. I wanted the education for myself. And so I built a brand around it, and I'm going to resonate with those people that feel that way. But if I start to be a funny company or a Gen Z company, which we're not whatsoever, and I don't even understand half of what they say, and I'm in my 30s, it's not going to resonate and you will fail. So do what actually makes sense for you and what you can speak to, and you will find your audience. Don't force yourself to be something you're not. It's only going to make you fail.
Sarah, thank you for being here on the podcast. I really enjoyed the conversation. I could keep going forever, but I want to be respectful with your time.
Thank you so much for having me. This was fun.
This episode was brought to you by BSR Digital. We help DTC brands grow through paid ads and email marketing campaigns. If you'd like us to help your business grow, head on over to bsrdigital.com and schedule a call with us.